Welcome back to the video homework guide on factoring, and for this video I'll be starting on question number 4. And for question number 4 I need to find 4 examples for the letter B so that the following trinomials can be factored. Alright, so for these kind of problems I will be setting up a little table here on the side, and the goal is I want to find two numbers that multiply to 6, and those two numbers need to combine to the middle term, which is B. Alright, so in order to set up my table, I would put my 6 on the left hand side here, and the letter B would be on the right hand side. So I need to find two numbers that multiply to 6. Alright, so one combination that could work is 3 and 2. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 plus 2 would be 5. So 5 is one of the numbers that would work for the letter B. Another combination that would work is negative 3 and negative 2. So negative 3 times negative 2 is 6, but negative 3 minus 2 would give me negative 5. So negative 5 is another number that would work. Okay, some other combinations that also work are 1 and 6, and negative 1 comma negative 6. Alright, so both those combinations would multiply to give you positive 6, but when you add them I get 7, and I would get negative 7 on this last one here. So my last two numbers that would work are 7 and negative 7. And that's how you would solve that particular problem. Let's move on to letter B here. Let me just erase the previous problem so I have a little more space here. Alright, so once again let's set up a little table here on the side. And the two numbers that I'm focusing on are 4. So I need two numbers that multiply to 4, and those two numbers need to combine to that middle term, which is B. So let's put the 4 here on the left hand side and a B here on the right hand side. Two numbers that multiply to 4, the obvious one would be 2 times 2, and 2 plus 2 would give you 4. Another combination that would work would be negative 2 and negative 2. That gives you positive 4 when you multiply them, and if you add them you get negative 4 in that case. Another combination that would work is 1 and 4 and negative 1 comma negative 4. So both those combinations multiply to 4, and when I add them I would get 5, and if I add this one together I would get negative 5. Alright, so the combinations that would work are, the numbers that would work for B would be 4, negative 4, 5, and negative 5. Okay, so we move on to letter C. Alright, so for letter C, same strategy. Let's set up a table here on the side. And once again, I'm focusing on negative 8 and this letter B here. So those are the terms or the numbers that would go into the box here. Alright, so a negative 8 here and the letter B. Alright, so two numbers that multiply to negative 8. I'm thinking of 1 and negative 8. And we can also flip that around, put the minus sign on the 1, and then the 8 would be positive. Alright, so both those combinations would multiply to negative 8. And if I start adding them, I would get negative 7 in this case, negative 7 there, and negative 1 plus 8 would be positive 7. And another combination that would work for negative 8 could be 4 and negative 2, and negative 4 comma positive 2. And once again, if you combine these, this would give you positive 2 and this would give you negative 2. So my answers are 7, negative 7, 2, and negative 2. Alright, let's move on to letter D now. Let me just erase this guy here. Let's create another table here. Alright, the numbers that I'm looking at again are negative 6 and the middle guy, which is B. So let's put negative 6 here on the left hand side, B on the right hand side. Two numbers that multiply to negative 6. I'm thinking 1 and negative 6. Negative 1, I could have negative 1. You should be thinking about this negative 5 here, and negative 5 times what would give you 30. So we need to get a 30 here, right? So the combination that would work there would be negative 6. So negative 5 times negative 6 gives you 30, and that would complete the missing term there, which is x minus 6. All right, for letter C here, I have an x squared. So x times what will give you x squared? Well, that has to be an x. And then I have a negative 6. So 3 times what would give you the negative 6? So that would have to be negative 2. And that's how you would finish off that problem. All right, so for letter D, there's an x squared here. So x times what would give you x squared? So that has to be an x there. And then look at the negative 6. Negative 3 times what would give you the negative 6? Well, in order to get a negative 6, this has to be positive, and 3 times 2 would give you the negative 6 there. All right, so that concludes question number 5. Not too bad. Let's move on to question number 6. For question number 6, I need to factor the trinomials, and I need to write down prime if it's not factorable. All right, so for these trinomials, the way I usually solve these kind of problems is I kind of set up a small little table on the side here. So most of these problems will have a table. And the goal is you want to find two numbers that multiply to this last term, and those two numbers need to combine to give you the middle term, which is 6, or the middle number, sorry. So when I set my table here, I usually put the last number 8, which is, this number here, I put that in my table like that, and this 6 I would put in my table like that. And just like the very first problem in this video, you want to find two numbers that multiply to 8, and those two numbers need to combine to 6. So this one's going to be 4 and 2. So 4 times 2 gives you 8, and 4 plus 2 gives you 6. And after that, you would set up two brackets. And there's an x term here and an x term there, because x times x gives you x squared. And then all you have to do is just insert these numbers, 4 and 2, into the brackets. So plus 4 and plus 2, and that would complete the factoring there. And then you're finished. Okay, moving on to letter B. Once again, I'm going to set up a table here because there's 3 terms. I want to find two numbers that multiply to 6, and those two numbers need to combine to 5. All right, so two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 5, that would be 3 and 2. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 plus 2 is 5. And in order to complete the factoring, I need two brackets. And in this case, I would have the letter C here, so C. So C times C is C squared. And then I would just insert the numbers 3 and 2 into the brackets. So this would be plus 3, and this would be plus 2, and that would finish off the problem. All right, moving on to letter C. Once again, let's set up a table here. The numbers in my table are going to be 14 and negative 9. So that's our first negative number there. So we need two numbers that multiply to 14, and those two numbers need to combine to negative 9. So I'm thinking about negative 7 and 2. Negative 7 times 2 gives you the, negative 7 and minus 2, So negative 7 times negative 2 would give you positive 14, and negative 7 minus 2 would give you the negative 9. So sorry about that. And then my two brackets, y is at the start, and then minus 7 and minus 2, and that would finish off the factoring there. Okay, so letter D. Let's set up another table here again. My numbers are 16 and negative 10. All right, so two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to a negative 10 would be negative 8 and negative 2. That definitely gives you the negative 10 there. All right, so two brackets, x's to start off, and then you just copy the numbers into the brackets. So negative 8 and negative 2. Okay, let's move on to letter E. Once again, let's set up a table here. The numbers that I need are 27 and positive 12. All right, so two numbers that multiply to 27 and add to positive 12 are 9 and 3. And after that, I can set my two brackets. This time I need the variable a. Remember, a times a gives you a squared. And then let's insert the plus 9 and the plus 3 into the brackets, and then we're done. Okay, so for letter F again, let's set up a table here. The numbers that I'm looking at are 24 and negative 14. All right, so two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to negative 14, that would be a negative 12 and a negative 2. And once again, let's set the brackets. X's to start off, and minus 12 and minus 2. And that would complete the factoring for that one as well. Okay, so let's keep on going here. Another table question here. This time the numbers are 36 and negative 15. So 36 and negative 15. All right, so two numbers that multiply to 36 and add to negative 15 are negative 3 and negative 12. So negative 3 times two negatives would give you the positive 36, and negative 3 minus 12 would give you the negative 15. All right, so X's to start off, and then we just insert the numbers there, negative 3 and negative 12. Okay, let's set up another table here. My two numbers are now 54 and 21. So let's put the 54 over here, and we'll put the 21 on the side. So two numbers that multiply to 54 and add to 21. This one would be 18 and 3. So 18 times 3 is 54, and 18 plus 3 is 21. So this would be y plus 18 and y plus 3. All right, so we're using the same strategy for all the problems here. I mean, after a while, you do get tired of writing out all these tables here. So the numbers are negative 36 and positive 13. All right, so two numbers that would... so this one's actually the first one where we can't factor. So I'm thinking about negative 4 and 9. That would give me the negative 36, but it doesn't give me the 13. 3 and 12, even that combination can't give you 13. So this is actually the first one where you can't factor. It's impossible to find two numbers that multiply to negative 36 and add to 13. So for that one, we just can't factor here. Let me just switch pens here and just write down can't factor. Okay, so we keep on moving along here. We're making pretty good progress here. Hopefully the rest will work out nicely here. My numbers here are 15 and negative 8. And two numbers that multiply to 15 and add to negative 8 are negative 5 and negative 3. And then we can jump to my final answer here, x minus 5 and x minus 3. And that would finish the problem. All right, next question here. The two numbers I'm looking at are negative 32 and negative 4. Two numbers that multiply to negative 32 and add to negative 4, well, that's going to be negative 8 and 4. All right, so then I can set my two brackets. This time let's have the letter y, y, and then our numbers, negative 8 and positive 4. Okay, once again, another table here. Then my numbers are negative 6, and in this case it's negative x, so that would be a coefficient of negative 1. All right, so two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to negative 1. I'm thinking of negative 3 and 2. So thinking of those numbers, it does take a little bit of practice. I mean, I'm usually just getting the answers on my first try because I have a little bit more experience, but you know, that might take a little bit of time for you to think of those two numbers, so just take your time when you're doing that. All right, and that's my final answer for that particular problem. So unfortunately, we still have a bunch more to go here, so I'll try my best to maybe speed up the process here, write down my tables here. This is going to be negative 18, this is going to be positive 3. Two numbers that multiply negative 18 and add to 3 are 6 and negative 3. And that definitely works. So this would be y plus 6 and y minus 3. And that one is finished. All right, for letter M, another table here. My numbers are negative 18. And my middle number is positive 7. So this is pretty good. I like having a combination of positive and negative numbers here. So the numbers that are working for this particular case are 9 and negative 2. All right, so my final answer would be b plus 9 and b minus 2. For my next problem here, there's an invisible 1 here in the middle, and if I set my table here, my numbers that I'm looking at are this last one here, which is negative 56, and this middle guy is just a positive 1. So two numbers that multiply to negative 56 and add to 1 are 8 and negative 7. And then we can set the two brackets. In this case, we'll have the letter A in the brackets, A and A. So A times A is A squared. And then we'll have plus 8 and negative 7. Okay, let's keep on going here. We still have quite a bit more to go here. Okay, another table here. My numbers are negative 12 and negative 4. Well, the two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add to negative 4 are negative 6 and 2. All right, so in order to complete that factoring, I have C minus 6 and C plus 2. And that should do it. All right, the next one here, let's set up a table here. My numbers are negative 36 and negative 9. All right, so two numbers that multiply to negative 36 and add to negative 9. I'm thinking about negative 12 and 3. Yep, that works. So that now my final answer would be x minus 12 and x plus 3. All right, so another table here. The numbers are negative 21 and positive 4. All right, so two numbers that multiply negative 21 and add to 4. That's going to be 7 and negative 3. So 7 times negative 3 is negative 21, and 7 minus 3 is 4. So this would be y plus 7 and y minus 3. All right, we're almost done this this next row here, or the questions in this particular section. So hang in there. My two numbers here are the last term, which is negative 75, and then my middle number is negative 22. This one's a little bit harder to think about, perhaps, but after a little bit of trial and error, it's going to be negative 25 and 3. And my bracket would be x minus 25 and x plus 3. All right, so now that I'm seeing another table here for this one here, my last number here is negative 40, and my middle number here is, oh, my pen's not working here. Okay, so negative 40, and my middle number is negative 3. The two numbers that work in this particular case would be negative 8 and 5. So that gives me the negative 40 and the negative 3. So now I can write my brackets out, x minus 8 and x plus 5. Right, one more table for this one here, and my numbers in this case are now 45 and 14. All right, so two numbers that multiply to 45, and those two numbers that would add to 14. This one's not too bad. That'd be 5 and 9. So my variable is now y now, so y plus 5 and y plus 9. And that would finish off the problem. All right, so in order for me to finish off this video, I want to finish off question number 7, which is factor the trinomials. And you'll notice that in this particular problem, I have x to the power 4 here and an x to the power 2 there. So even if we have higher powers, we still use the same strategy. We still use the table here because we have 3 terms overall. The last number here is 10, and the middle number here is 7. So we still need to find two numbers that multiply 10, and those two numbers need to add to 7. So the numbers are 5 and 2. And when I set my brackets, I do need to change something slightly here. I have x to the power 4, so in order to get x to the power 4, this has to be x to the power 2, and that should be x to the power 2. And then after that, we can just add our numbers, plus 5 and plus 2. And then we're done that particular problem. Okay, so it's just one extra step from the previous problems that we've been doing. All right, for letter B, once again, we can set up a table here. My last number is negative 14. My middle number here is negative 5. So I need two numbers that multiply to negative 14 and add to negative 5. I'm thinking about negative 7 and 2. All right, so when I set my brackets here are my brackets, and maybe this time I can put the numbers to start off, negative 7 and plus 2. Now I need a to the power 4 here, so this should be a to the power 2 times a to the power 2. and that should give me a to the power 4 there. All right, moving on to letter C, another table to start off. The last number here is 36. The middle number here is 13. So two numbers that multiply to 36 and add to 13 are 9 and 4. And once again, the two brackets, I will go ahead and put the plus 9 and the plus 4 at the tail end. To get m to the power 4, this should be m squared, and that should be m squared as well. So m squared times m squared is m to the power 4. Okay. For this polynomial here, there are three terms. So whenever there's three terms, I can set up a table here. My last number here is 36, and my middle number here is negative 12. So now I need two numbers that multiply to 36 and add to negative 12. The two numbers are going to be negative 6 and negative 6. All right, so when I set the bracket here, it's a little bit different. So here's an x squared term. So the first letters have to be x and x, because x times x gives you x squared. And then I can plug in these numbers here, the negative 6 and the negative 6. But I need to have a y squared here, right? So I need to have a y at the tail end here, right? So negative 6y times negative 6y gives you positive 36y squared. All right, so we need to add another variable at the back there of the brackets. All right, for letter E, three terms again, so we still set the table here. My last number here is 24. My middle number here is 14. Two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to 14 are 12 and 2. So here's my bracket. Okay, so I need a x squared here. So that in order to get x squared, the first term should be x and x. And then I can insert the numbers plus 12 and plus 2. And because, just like the previous problem, there's a y squared at the very end, I need a single y there and a single y there, and that would complete the factoring. Okay, so I'm down to the very last question in this video here now. Thank you for watching. My last number here is negative 100, and my middle number here is 21. Two numbers that multiply to negative 100 and add to 21. That's going to be 25 and negative 4. All right, so let's set up two brackets here. All right, in order to get this x squared, that should be an x, and that should be an x. Then I can plug in my numbers plus 25 and minus 4. And just like the previous three questions, we need to have the y's. I need to have a single y here and a single y there, and that would give me the y squared term at the very end. So x plus 25y times x minus 4y would be my final answer.